The Kremlin's shameful secret has been exposed to the whole world. Russian cities are in disaster, and all of this is happening while the Kremlin spends all its money on the war against Ukraine, while the capital, Moscow, flaunts luxury. This video is about the real Russia, forbidden for foreigners to see. For years, propagandists convinced the world of Russia's greatness, showing images of wealthy Moscow. Meanwhile, the winter of 2026 once again revealed the deep problems in Russia's municipal infrastructure. Across the country, there were widespread reports of power, water, and heating outages. The Belgorod region suffered the most from municipal infrastructure failures. Other regions among the worst affected included Krasnodar Krai, Murmansk Oblast, Dagestan, Ryazan Oblast, and Kaluga Oblast. The newspaper Novaya Europa counted the number of power, heating, and water outages and spoke with those forced to live under such conditions. In January 2026, 1,280 municipal infrastructure failures were reported, twice as many as the previous year. The state of Russia's utility networks has long been a cause for concern. A significant portion of the infrastructure is worn out, and the pace of modernization remains critically low. Experts have repeatedly warned that much larger investments are needed even just to stop the further deterioration of networks. Despite this, the Russian government plans to cut spending on housing and communal services. This is happening against a backdrop of massive outages and systemic failures, which increasingly leave people without the basic necessities for life. The electricity situation in Murmansk Oblast was particularly severe. In several settlements, residents were left without power for extended periods due to failures on worn-out power lines. It is worth noting that Murmansk Oblast is a northern region of Russia above the Arctic Circle, on the coast of the Barents Sea, about 1,500 kilometers from Moscow. It is a strategically important area with ports and military bases, but has a very harsh climate and aging infrastructure. Moscow primarily views the region as a military and resource outpost, not as a place for comfortable living. Local residents often feel that the center invests in the showy capital and the war, while their basic needs, heat, electricity, water, have been ignored for years. Therefore, the attitude toward Moscow here is rather cautiously critical, not openly rebellious, but with deep disappointment and fatigue over the center's indifference. At the end of January 2026, a large-scale emergency occurred in Murmansk Oblast. Due to severe weather, 5 power line towers collapsed. As a result, Murmansk and Severomorsk were partially without electricity. Power, heating, and water interruptions began in homes. An emergency regime was declared in the region. According to Governor Andrei Chibis, over 1,000 homes in Murmansk alone were at risk of losing heating systems. In some areas, rolling blackouts were implemented. Later, some polyclinics branches didn't open, and college students were switched to distance learning. It was later revealed that 2 of the toppled power line towers had been in operation since 1966, 2 others since 1982, and 1 since 1988, while the standard service life is 40 years. In short, Russians simply didn't maintain the power lines properly. They simply don't care. Serving the war is more important to them. Despite the scale of the event, federal TV channels almost completely ignored it. The only extended report on the situation in Murmansk Oblast aired on Russia 1 or Россия 1. The report lasted less than 2 minutes and came at the very end of the news broadcast. After segments on negotiation in Abu Dhabi, the frontline situation, Ukraine's energy sector, and cold weather in other Russian regions. Later, the same channels devoted about 20 seconds to Murmansk. Channel 1 or Первый канal limited itself to a brief mention in the morning news. The host, while reporting on bad weather across the country, said that a storm in Murmansk Oblast caused trouble, spending less than 10 seconds on the region. These are federal TV channels, major media outlets watched by Russians across the country. It turns out that Moscow assured the public that everything was under control, while in Murmansk, people sat without electricity or heating like in primitive times. Another example, water supply problems in Russia. This has become one of the most acute issues for Dagestan. Residents of many towns and villages complain for weeks about water shortages and the overall deterioration of communal services. In some areas, indoor temperatures fell to critical levels, ice appeared on windows, and residents openly spoke of threats to children's health and a complete failure of housing and communal management. It is worth noting that Dagestan is a republic in southern Russia, in the North Caucasus region, on the Caspian Sea coast, about 1,700 kilometers from Moscow, roughly the distance from Berlin to Rome. Despite being part of the same state on paper, Dagestan and Moscow are very different in culture, living standards, and everyday reality. Moscow is a wealthy center of power and resource, while Dagestan remains a poor periphery with chronic infrastructure problems. Many residents view Moscow not as their capital, but as a distant center that controls the region but cares little about its development. Attitudes toward Moscow are rather tense and distrustful rather than loyal, thought economic dependence forces coexistence with the federal government. On January 8, 2026, residents of Kaspiysk began complaining about water shortages and complete neglect from officials. On January 15, a new accident occurred on the water main. 2 days later, authorities reported that water supply was supposedly restored, but the next day, residents of 2 districts were advised not to drink tap water. Municipal problems in Dagestan have repeatedly led to spontaneous protests. In August 2025, locals staged a rally due to prolonged power outages. Afterwards, the city administration reported that electricity had been restored in most homes. Also, complaints continued from other districts. Officials also warned against calls for mass protests on social media and threatened accountability for unauthorized demonstrations. Finally, Irkutsk Oblast, a large region in Siberia beyond the Urals. From Moscow, it is farther than from London to New York in a straight line. It is a territory with an extreme climate, huge natural resources, and cities that have lived with worn-out infrastructure for decades. For Moscow, Irkutsk Oblast is primarily a resource and strategic base, not a priority for investing in people's quality of life. Locals often feel that the capital takes resources and taxes, leaving the region to fend for itself against frost, outages, and communal crisis. Winter 2026 was far from easy for the region. A serious municipal failure occurred in the northern city of Bodaibo. Over 1,000 Russians were left without heating and water. Reports of the municipal failure reached the media space on January 30, 2026, but problems began earlier. The water main froze amid nighttime temperatures of -50 degrees Celsius. Emergency services towed the pipes, and the situation seemed under control. But it wasn't. 3 boiler stations stopped working. At that time, 100 to 120 homes, including private houses, were without water and heat, according to local authorities. And there are many such reports. Russian regions are neglected, corruption thrives, and the money that remains is spent either on war or on Moscow's benefit. Nobody cares about the regions, and things will only get worse for ordinary Russians.